everyone, welcome to CGTN's live stream today. And I hold a popsicle in my hand. Can you make out what it says? It says New Youth. It is a replica of the New Youth magazine from sometime a century ago. It was an influential literature magazine that was made from people here in the Red Building. And let me just hand that over to my colleague. And we are standing here at the Red Building of the old Peking University. And it is located on the May 4th Street. And this building is considered the place of origin of the May 4th movement. And a lot of tourists, residents have been coming here to get interesting souvenirs, creative stuff from here, like the popsicle before. And people have been coming here after watching some popular TV dramas such as the Awakening Age. And here inside is a exhibition about the May 4th movement, when over 3,000 university students from Beijing took to the streets and made their demands heard back in a very dangerous time for the nation. And it was considered one of the turning points of China's contemporary history. And I'm gonna need a little more help to tell you about the story. So here we have Mr. Zhu. He's gonna help me and take a tour around the exhibition. 朱老师您好。
你好，欢迎。
好，老师，我看咱们这个北大红楼，是一个就是原址，我们当时是什么时候建筑的这个建筑？
这个红楼呢，它是最早始建于1916年，1918年8月正式建成。
So this building, the Red Building, was built back in 1916 and it finished in 1918. 这个是当时北大的一个什么建筑呀？
这里呢，当时建成以后呢，是作为北大的文科校部还有图书馆的所在地。
Okay, so after it was built in 1918, it acted as a building for the 文科对吧 ？Social Sciences Department.
相当于是文学院。
Yes, social sciences and literature departments, and also I think the little rooms served as dorms to the students. And 北大图书馆是在我们这里面的大概什么位置？
当时整个1层都是图书馆。我们现在经过这些房间呢，好多都是当时的藏书室。
Oh, so what we are passing by right now were libraries at the time, and they covered most of the first floor. And I think we're heading. 我们现在是去一个这个复原室。
对，我们这次的展览呢，除了介绍了这个当时早期革命的活动的历史，还做了6处旧址复原。其中1层的东侧呢就有3处。我们要看到的其中的第1处呢，就是5四游行筹备室。
Oh, okay. So they had 6 replica rooms from the exact spot things took place, and we are right here heading into one of the rooms right now. That was the preparation room for the May 4th movement. 老师请。
对，这个房间其实是当时北大的一个著名的学生社团新潮杂志社的办公室。
就在这个原址，
就在这里。
我们现在站在这个房间。
对，没错。
What we are standing right now was once the Renaissance Club, I think, one of the original and first clubs founded in the Peking University, and 学生们是在这儿做了这个游行的准备，对吗？
对，这里我们可以看到有很多的标语，还有条幅。1919年5月3号的晚上，包括4号的上午，北大的同学就是在这里进行第2天游行的准备。
Okay, I see new cloths and ink prepared to make banners and demands for when they make the demonstration on May 4th. So the night before, on the 3rd, and on that morning of the 4th, students were gathering here to make these preparations. 这边是当时的这个条幅的一种复原，对吗？对，
条幅上写的都是当时学生的口号，包括外争主权、内除国贼，誓死力争还我青岛，以及反对卖国的21条等等。
是。Well, the students made their demands onto these banners, and I think the key information here is that they wanted to save the country's sovereignty, to protect the sovereignty from foreign forces, while they want to punish the traitors from within the country. So as we gather the basic information for the movement, what they're truly talking about. 我们继续在接下来的展厅会看到更多这个来龙去脉，对不对？
好的。
We'll cover more on that throughout the exhibition. 我们这个是
在这里呢，还有一件比较特殊的一个展品啊。当时5月4号的上午，北大的外语系的学生罗家伦在这里呢花了15分钟时间写下了一篇著名的北京全体学界通告。
You can see as we're zooming in that this is a kind of a manifesto to serve as the movement's foundation, and the article came from a student named Luo Jialun. On the morning of the May the 4th, he came up with the manifesto 15分钟 in 15 minutes.
而且我们最熟悉的那句5-4口号"外争主权，内除国贼"，实际上就是出自这篇文章。
Okay, so the one of the key demands that we covered earlier, that we want to save the nation's sovereignty and punish these traitors, actually came from his article. Okay, we're moving. Oh wow, that is right. 好，小心。We're moving on upstairs. 老师，我看咱们这个红楼的整个建筑风格是一种中西结合的感觉。
对，这个红楼当时建筑当时始建的时候呢，是委托了一个比利时的公司来设计的。所以它有一点中西结合的这样一个感觉。
We see that this building has really high ceilings, which is not that normal here, and it was actually designed by an architect from Belgium. So it has this vibe that combines the west and the east. That's quite unique. 我们来到了2层 We are here on the second floor.
对，接下来呢，要带大家来参观的就是我们展览当中关于五四运动的介绍。
Okay, so we are getting into the details of the movement, the May the 4th movement. 我们现在去的是什么展厅？
我们这次呢，一共是从1层到3层，一共有65个展厅。我们这里来到是第15厅。
Okay, here we have 65 different rooms of exhibits. 好，请。这边是一个等于说五四运动的背景介绍，对吗？
对，这里呢实际上是我们第3部分的一个开端，主要介绍五四运动的一个全过程。首先，这个展厅呢是介绍五四运动爆发的国际历史背景。
Okay, so here in this room, we have the international historical background of the May 4th movement. And I'm seeing pictures from the First World War, and how does that link to us? 这个我们五四运动跟一战是有什么样的历史渊源？
对，这张照片呢，实际上就是一战期间，日本呢借口对德国宣战，出兵中国山东，而且占领了德国在山东的租界地。当时呢就要求把德国在中国的权益转让给这个日本，转让给他自己。
Okay, so in 1914, after the outbreak of the First World War, Japan declared war on Germany on our soil in Shandong province, and Japan fired missiles to. Is that missile? Okay, Japan just basically fired towards Germany in Shandong and want to take what they had in China into Japan's own territory.
对，而且在第2年呢，当时日本政府向中国提出了21条，这个我们一般把它叫做灭亡中国的21条。当时中国政府呢虽然没有全部接受，但是签了一个条约，当时就出卖了中国的很多的利益。
And the next year in 1915, the Japanese government they drafted this 21 demands that was aimed to annex China altogether, and the Yuan Shikai government, the Beiyang government at the time, they wanted to sign the 21 demands. And here we have them in a group photograph that they were signing, partially agreeing to the demands.
对，然后下面呢，这里可以看到，这是中国的准备派往欧洲战场进行战地劳动，进行战地劳动的劳工。
所以说，中国也是在
一战的参战国。
中国也是在大量参加一战当时的这个工作的。
对的，派了14万劳工到欧洲去，而且其中有2万多人在战场中身亡。
This is new information for me that actually 140 Chinese laborers were sent to Britain and France and on the battlefield of the First World War, and they were working as battlefield services, and like they digged trenches in Europe, and actually around 20,000 Chinese laborers died during the First World War. So China was allied with these nations and was among the victorious countries in the World War I.
所以作为一战的战胜国，中国人其实本来以为可以通过一战的胜利，收回德国在山东的权利。结果呢，当时在战后的巴黎和会上呢，列强却要把山东的权利转让给日本。
Yes, so China was victorious during the World War I, was among the nations that won World War I, as we just said. But during the Paris Peace Conference, the Western countries decided that they were not going to recognize China's contribution to the war, and they were assigning Shandong to Japan anyway, and so that just triggered nationwide anger. 所以就是当时全国学生就开始有一些愤怒的情绪。对，
消息传到了国内以后呢，应该说整个全国这个中国人民，尤其是知识分子，非常的气愤，非常的愤慨。
Yes, so the intellectuals, especially, they heard the news from Paris, and they were really just filled with anger about how they were taking the sovereignty from the Chinese people. Okay, so what we have here is a replica, right? 这个是一个I see 5·4前夜的一个。
对，它表现的就是1919年5月3号的晚上，北大的同学在当时的法科，就是相当于法学院的礼堂进行了一次集会。
So on the eve before the movement, on the eve of May the 3rd, the replicas here just demonstrates students gathering together after hearing about the bad news, and they wanted to just figure out what they're going to do next to save the country, and they were just filled with anger.
也正是在这次集会上呢，同学们决定第二天，到街头呢进行游行示威。
And during this gathering, they decided that on the next day, last minute, they were gonna take to the streets on the 4th.
当时呢，游行队伍来到了卖国贼曹汝霖的住所赵家楼因为曹汝霖之前出卖过中国的利益，所以当时气愤的学生呢，把他的家给烧掉了。
曹汝霖是刚才我们在看那个21条签约的时候在现场的一个
签订21条的人。
所以while the students came to 曹汝霖, one of the government officials that wanted to sign the 21 demands and annex China altogether, they came to his house and they set fire to it in protest, in anger.
对，当时呢还有32名同学呢因此被军警给逮捕。
And during that protest, 32 students were arrested.
对，然后在我们这里呢，还可以看到这个由美国摄影家，5·4时期拍摄的一些真实的照片。
Yes, and we have here real live photographs from a century ago in 1919 that were taken by American journalists, and they have this, through the lens of American photographer as part of the exhibition. Okay. 所以我们好继续。
对，我们继续看一下下一个。
等于说，我们现在看到了这个5·4运动的背景，然后看到了接下来的这个具体的运动的过程。We have covered the background and how the May 4th demonstration actually took place. 多少学生参加了当时这一次的这个游行
？5·4当天呢，应该说有13所学校加起来3000多名学生走上了街头。
So on the day of May the 4th. Students from 13 universities across Beijing, there were over 3,000 of them. They participated in the demonstration. 好，老师，我们这个展览最近有没有一些就是年轻人通过看，比如说看《觉醒年代》，然后来这边，就对这个历史特别有兴趣，然后就是最近有一些年轻人来观展？
没错，确实，我们从去年6月份开展以后，引起了应该说社会各界的广泛关注，尤其《觉醒年代》的影响力非常大，很多年轻人到这里来进行一个打卡参观，而且
是我也是这其中之一，就是 I'm among one of the young people that watched the TV drama such as The Awakening Age and wanted to come here to get a sense of history while immersed in all this by ourselves. And so yeah, young people have been coming here more often since the museum actually opened last year. 好，我们现在是
对，这里我们看到的是五四运动的一个全息影像。
This is a holographic projection of everything we basically just talked about, the whole progress of the May 4th movement. And 这边是什么内容？
这个是当时学生被捕以后呢，北大的校长蔡元培积极的去营救保释他们，所以到了5月7号，当时32个同学就全部被释放出来了。
所以这就是为什么北大也是这个策源地之一，就是北大的各行各业，就是北大的所有人员都在参与到这个大部分人员都在参与到5·4这个游行里面。Yes, well, the headmaster of the Peking University at the time, he actually worked really hard to save the students from their arrests, and they were later freed. The 32 arrested university students were later freed on May the 7th, 3 days later.
但是呢，虽然学生被释放了，整个这个事件或者说这个问题还没有完全解决。当时蔡元培很快辞职，学生们也非常的生气，要求政府呢挽回蔡元培，而且拒签凡尔赛合约。
所以他们的等于说合理的这些诉求，其实还并没有在国际上得到认可。
对对对。
Well, we can say that the students, while the arrested students were freed, their demands internationally were not met, and later the headmaster Cai Yuanpei actually resigned, and just triggered more anger from the students, and they wanted their headmaster back, and they wanted their international demands heard. And we are moving on to our next part of the exhibition. I think.
对，当时实际上6月1号的时候呢，学生继续走上街头去进行演讲和宣传。6月3号的时候，北洋政府呢又抓捕了很多的学生。
So more actions were made on June the 1st, and more students. 小心小心啊！Well, more students were on the streets to make speeches and demonstrate, and more students were also arrested. I think then triggered this nationwide anger from other people. Well, 老师，这个是我看是工人阶级的一些抗争。
对，是的。正是因为学生被捕之后呢，当时上海的工人为了声援北京的学生，进行了罢工。这一天是1919年的6月5号。而且上海工人的罢工呢，引发带动了全国100多个城市的这个工人罢工，包括学生罢课、商人罢市。
哇，就是其实是我看是1个月之后，然后在这个从上海辐射到全国。
是的，是的。
是一个罢工的一个是，well, yeah, roughly a month later in June, workers from Shanghai started to make political strikes, and then they just rippled across the country to what we saw here, over 100 Chinese cities that workers were going on strike, students were going on strike, and merchants also, and just a wave of strikes and political demands were made throughout the country.
对，而且应该说工人的罢工呢，所起到的作用是不可替代的。最终正是因为工人罢工、商人罢市、学生罢课3罢斗争，迫使北洋政府呢接受了拒签凡尔赛合约的这样一个要求。
所以就是一个阶段性的胜利，等于说。
对对对。
Well, because of how powerful and the mass of workers' strike, the government wasn't able to cope anymore, so they actually ended up in, well, we have here refusal to sign the Treaty of Versailles, and which was considered as a win for the movement. 这边写的是我看是拒签这个凡尔赛合约，然后
对，这一天呢实际上是1919年的6月28号，当时在巴黎的中国政府代表团，当时拒绝到现场去签字，所以就没有承认当时把德国在山东权益转交给日本，这样一个做法。
So the movement was basically a success after on the day of June the 28th. The Chinese delegation refused to sign the peace agreement in Paris, and this was a win for the movement. And I think we have more here. 这边写的是我看罢免了一些当时的北洋军阀的官员，对吗？
对，罢免了当时的主要是3个亲日派的官僚。
Yeah, the Beiyang government at the time, they ended up dismissing officials such as Cao Rulin, who basically agreed to most of the 21 demands, and they ended up letting them go from their posts, and that was also considered a win for the movement. 所以老师，我们这个5·4运动介绍到现在，就等于说从开端，然后过程，然后结局，都已经说到了之后，您在这个场馆工作将近一年以来，有没有什么印象深刻的故事？比如说参观的人有没有就是跟你有一些交流？
应该说我们这个展览在开展之后呢，有很多观众过来参观。那其中有一位特别的观众，就是当时北大图书馆主任李大钊先生他的孙子，叫李洪塔先生。他来到这里，在我这个为他讲解介绍的时候，我印象特别深刻。当时旁边有一位观众听到我们的交谈，得知了说他是李大钊的先生的孙子，所以要跟他合影。当时在合影的时候，这个照片还没有拍完的时候，他就已经激动地落泪了。
Oh, well, Mr. Zhu is telling me that one of his most he remembers this story really mimically. He says that back when there was this time that one of the leaders in the movement and one of the founders of the Communist Party of China, Li Dazhao, his grandson actually came to this museum a while ago, and Mr. Zhu here was taking him through the building, and a passerby, another tourist, heard what they were talking about. 这个合影的是一位阿姨还是叔叔？
是一位阿姨。
一位阿姨。Well, an elder lady heard what they were talking about and came up to them and said, could she take a picture with the grandson of Li Dazhao? And before they could actually get out a camera, she was already crying. She had tears on her face. She was really emotional. 是不是一种就是？
对，因为大钊先生应该说是我们中国共产党的主要创始人，而且他当时在北大呢，应该说对很多青年有很大的影响。5·4运动当中，很多青年这个学生领袖都是受到大钊先生的影响，而且这个大钊先生他牺牲的时间非常早，38岁的时候就这个牺牲了。所以我想当观众看到他的后人的时候，就出现在自己的面前的时候，会有一种历史和现实交汇的感觉。
Yes, well, Mr. Li Dazhao actually was an inspiration, and he had ripple effects. He influenced a number of students from back in the day, and so I think the lady here, she was emotional because, and he passed away at the age of 38. So the lady here, she was just really excited to see a part of history actually connecting to her reality, and I can totally relate to what she was feeling. 所以老师，我们这个整个5·4运动的可以说意义或者在历史上的地位是什么样的
？5·4运动呢，我们现在把它认为是中国新民主主义革命的开端。而且它是极大的促进了这个中国一代进步青年的觉醒。另外呢，它也代表了中国的工人阶级作为一个独立的政治力量，开始登上了历史舞台。
Okay, so it was,不好意思，it was considered the beginning of the new democratic revolution in China, and it just 您刚才说的这个是这个新民主主义革命的开端，然后影响了很多年轻人。
对，很多青年因此而觉醒，而且是代表工人阶级登上了这个政治舞台。
And many young intellectuals at the time were waking up to these new ideas of democracy and science, and it also marked the working class as a political force for the first time.
对，而且可以说2年之后，中国共产党的成立，是5四运动为他做了一个干部上和思想上的基础。
And the May 4th movement actually contributed in many ways to the founding of the Communist Party of China years later. 就是谢谢老师带我们这个观看了这么一次有这个教育意义的展览。
不客气。
Well, and I think after seeing all this, we are all taking it all in, and young generations today are still inspired and by the May 4th spirit, and we are still memorizing them in our own way nowadays. So thank you for tuning in at our live stream today here in the Red Building at the old Peking University, and we'll see you next time. 谢谢老师 ，Thank you, bye bye.